please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Subdates 250423.7. The effort we've gone through to acquire so much ammo should be admired. It certainly will be by Subfleet once they've been submitted, subjugated and turned into servitors by myself. Wow, Diorktub under my orders. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about dedicated conversation about climate protesters, Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, Insulate Britain, and I don't know, the other one, I think they're called I Haven't Got a Real Job. We're going to start with a tweet that actually takes us back to January, and then we're going to skip back to present. Moondragon. Didn't people just run over protesters in America? A retweet of somebody talking about how the Germans are so based. Underneath though, she added, well, we did this. This is where Just Stop Oil factor. Many months ago, in 2022, Just Stop Oil protesters squashed a cake into the waxwork of King Charles III. This was when people were using their own initiative and wasting perfectly good cake to deface art. It happens. F in the comments for that poor, defenseless cake. Just be lucky it wasn't a cake in the face of John Prescott, because even if it was a waxwork, he probably would have chinned you. The two people in that picture are unpronounceable name McFadden and Tom Johnson. They were arrested and charged with criminal damage, because shocker, Madame Tussauds were not best impressed by this. They were ordered to pay Madame Tussauds £3,500 in compensation. Oh, and I know I said F in the comments for that cake, but it is vegan, so you don't have to give me the capital F. Lowercase will suffice, as it is an inferior quality cake. We here on this channel only support full-fat cake, in the same sense that I refuse to eat dairy-free marshmallows. I wonder how many people get that joke. The true damage done was that the entire waxwork itself needed to be repainted, and the dry cleaning on the suit, yeah, that's not great. This work had taken an extra 5 hours, admission was halted for almost an hour, which could have prevented up to 900 people entering during the busy half-term holiday. You really chose your moment, didn't you? Johnson is a self-employed artist. Somewhat ironic here, I guess. No previous convictions, and was given a 12-month conditional discharge along with being ordered to pay $1,750 compensation, $250 costs. For unpronounceable McFadden, she had 3 previous convictions for aggravated trespass, and was ordered to pay the same amount of compensation and handed a 12-month community order which included 80 hours of unpaid work. Both denied the charges, yet it is in video form. Now, we skip ahead because I noticed Dartford Crossing was trending on Twitter. Does anyone remember what happened on the Dartford Crossing last year? This is interesting. This is going to be very interesting because Morgan Troland, Marcus Decker, they were the ones up on hammocks hanging over the Dartford Crossing. These two idiots. Now, I have covered the guy on the right. I covered him because I believe he was a teacher. He put out an entire video talking about he could not stand idly by while future generations blah 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 blah. You know, that crap. Here's a clip of it.
We'll stop this disruption when the government cancels all new oil and gas extraction licenses. Hello, it's Morgan. I'm a civil engineer from London, and as part of Just Stop Oil, I'm occupying the QE2 bridge over the River Thames going in M25. So we have to have an emergency transition to renewable energy. We've got to pay for that transition using the profits of the oil and gas industry and the rich.
Could you sound any more like a upper-class, white, London, posh, snob, oik pleb? In total, Marcus Decker and Morgan Troland were suspended over the Queen Elizabeth II Bridge, or the Dartford Crossing, for 37 hours in October of 2022. The pair had argued during the trial it was a peaceful protest. The court and the prosecution were arguing that they were guilty of causing a public nuisance. The trial had heard how the defendants scaled the bridge cables at about 4 British Standard Time on the 17th of October, reaching a height of 200 feet or 60 meters. It's less impressive, but still quite high. Prosecutors described how they unfurled a Just Stop Oil branded banner and rigged up hammocks. Essex Police used a, this is scientific by the way, very tall cherry picker crane to bring the pair down about while 5:30 the following day. For those that don't know, this bridge takes traffic southbound over the River Thames on the A282 connecting to the M25 between Essex and Kent. 41 hours after the demonstration began, it was reopened. I had a friend come down when this happened, and there were disruptions. It was a minor inconvenience for him to get to where I am in Kent. Prosecutors said that the closure caused gridlock for miles around, can confirm, and delayed almost 565,000 drivers. Based on UK law, and this was a point I had to make, you can, for as much as you want, protest about damage to the environment, but if you stop moving traffic, they can't just turn their engines off. From a legal standpoint, they're still running, which means you are doing nothing to benefit the planet, and as that smoke rises and you're so high up, you get to breathe all that full fat oxygen in. When giving evidence, Morgan Troland said we climbed it to deliver a warning message, to put up a banner saying "Just Stop Oil," and to speak that message through interviews with journalists. I assume you had 2 tins, a rope, and it was really long, so you can get to those journalists. Oh wait, no, you're using technology to get the point across. My mistake. Essex Police claimed small businesses lost hundreds of thousands of pounds, including one that estimated losing up to 170,000 in earnings. The force also referenced a heavily pregnant woman who needed urgent medical help, a child with additional needs who could not access medication, and a person who missed a best friend's funeral. We did speak about those incidents in videos on this very channel. I may link them down below if you're interested. Chief Superintendent Simon Anslow from Essex Police described the campaigners' actions as juvenile and dangerous. The 2 defence barristers said neither of their clients intended to conduct further disruptive protests. Oh well, we've seen the error of our ways. We'll go back to not living at any fixed address and being civil in society. We made our point. Nothing really came of it. We've learnt our lesson, everyone. Jacob Bindman has said that Morgan Troland had, in his words, done his bit and did not want to spend more time in prison. Rebecca Martin for Decker, whose client is a German citizen and works as a private tutor. Oh look, colour me surprised. A civil engineer and a private tutor. You really are working class. Said the protest wasn't his idea, and he was not part of the initial planning for the demonstration. Oh, are you telling me you're about to grass on somebody? Interesting. Now their protests, much like many, were because the government was providing new gas and oil licenses, because we needed to offset the vast amount of, let's say, energy bill increase going on around the country, because it turns out the energy bill companies, or the energy firms themselves, realizing they can maintain vast profit margins, have a huge amount of power and sway over the governments. And because they own certain rigs, they own certain facilities, they are essentially able to dictate to the government what they can set the price at. The government tried to offset it by giving us some taxpayer money. That doesn't last forever, and the bills, while they are starting to come down a little, they're still pretty high. Cost of living's up 10.1% after all. It's not surprising things are going to get more pricey. Now, in the case of these 2, Marcus Decker, Morgan Troland, they were found guilty, and there is a sentence. And this one surprised me, because I didn't actually think for a second that they would get a punishment that could in fact act as a reasonable deterrent, depending on your interpretation of what a deterrent is. After all this had happened and they had been sentenced, I'll get to the sentence in a moment, spokesperson for Just Stop Oil, Rachel Boslad, said, "I am absolutely horrified and disgusted by what has happened here today. It's absolutely not justice. Our criminal government has been found guilty of breaking their own climate change legislation in the High Court, and yet they face no penalties and no sentences. In July last year, a judge said that the government's net zero strategy breached obligations under the Climate Change Act." That is what it is in reference to. Since they were arrested, both Marcus Decker and Morgan Troland had been held on remand, and both were shocked when they got their sentences. Marcus Decker was jailed for 2 years and 7 months. Morgan Troland, 3 years. They will serve half of their sentence before being released. Since they've been held on remand since their arrest, they won't serve as much time in a prison as they think, but they are still going to prison. This surprised me. Judge Shane Colley KC said that the pair plainly believed you knew better than other people and were thinking to hell with everyone else. You have to be punished for the chaos you caused and to deter others from copying you. Many have said that this is too far, the sentence itself, but actually the disruption caused and where they did eat, I'm surprised they didn't get a slightly longer sentence. There are limitations to how much you can consider a peaceful protest. What you did, while a peaceful protest and out of the way of everyone else, was a health and safety danger risk hazard to hundreds of thousands of drivers. With regards to Marcus Decker and Morgan Troland, I'd love to know what you think about what they have received and what they did. My curiosity would like to be sated. There's one last thing I'd like to talk about though concerning Extinction Rebellion Chief Gail Bradbrook. We have on this channel multiple times spoken about how people who work for these organizations are massive hypocrites. Gail Bradbrook is no exception. Gail is the type who has called for people to cut consumer activity, minimize carbon emissions, but she is a hypocrite. She was seen loading imported foods from Chile, Vietnam, Spain, Cyprus, Italy into her diesel car. This comes across as somebody who lives by the mantra of do as I say, not as I do. When questioned about this, a spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion said, "We're getting on with the real work of building a mass movement that creates a better society, blah blah blah," and not talking about the fact that they got busted. If you want to have a leg to stand on, you have to lead by example. Gail Bradbrook is the co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, yet clearly taking ladders out from under other people is what she really does. If people like Gail represent your movement is a joke. Oh, and Gail actually has an excuse why she drives a diesel car, because electric ones are too expensive, and that she needs to drive her son to sports games. Not even a joke. Considering all the concessions you expect everyone else to make, you can't make one because your son has to go to sports games, and eco-tricky cars are too pricey? Hypocrisy, thy name is Gail.